Well, the time is 10 minutes past 9. You're still tuned into Salam Media. Now, our next story is a very, very, interesting one and a very emotional, heartfelt one. Um, what happens when an alleged victim of gender-based violence lies and an innocent man goes to jail? Gender-based violence is known to be a pandemic in South Africa. But what is the recourse when someone intentionally goes and reports, their partner for a gender-based violence case, and investigations are done, and turns out they have lied, and the applicant or the accused finds themselves in jail for a certain period of time? Is there law that deals with this? Do we have legislature that works around the abuse of gender-based violence processes? We're going to now be joined by Khalid Aziz, who's an applicant, well, a victim of the story that I just shared, and his lawyer, attorney, Ghirao. Kylen and Khalid, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Salam Media.
Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate
Mm,
Good morning. Good morning, Selelo. Good morning, Mr. Aziz, and to the viewers. Thank you for
mm,
inviting us and myself as well
mm.
to be part of your
Kylian,
show.
I'm not sure, as a representative of Mr. Khalid, if you can just summarize, what happened to him as short as possible.
Look, essentially, Mr. Aziz was charged with assault under the guise of gender based violence. He was appearing in the Weinberg Magistrates Court, which is Alexandra. Um, Very unusual story. He was convicted and sentenced within 2 hours. He was represented by Legal Aid South Africa, which is the biggest law firm in South Africa. It's a state institution that provides legal services to people who cannot afford legal services. Essentially, Mr. Aziz got the whoop in the matter and he was sentenced to 3 years direct imprisonment for the alleged charges that he was convicted of. In summary, we brought a review application in the Johannesburg High Court. A very tedious process, very long process. Mr. Aziz will confirm that it, there's a lot of hurdles that we had to overcome. But in summary, we went to the High Court. The High Court concurred with our application that our review succeeded, that he had inadequate legal representation by legal aid. Over and above that, the magistrate in the matter brought the gauntlet on Mr. Aziz within 2 hours, which is unheard of within the legal framework of trial advocacy. In summary, Mr. Aziz was released after spending 408 days in custody. And obviously, we never met Mr. Aziz prior to the incident. We only met him while he was in custody. So that also is another hurdle that we had to overcome, understanding his story and what had transpired in the matter. So in summary, Mr. Aziz spent 408 days in custody for the High Court to overturn the decision that his conviction and sentences was unlawful. And essentially now Mr. Aziz has been released.
I think I'm going to bring in Khalid there. Khalid, just briefly, man, I'm sure it was a really, really traumatic experience that you went through. If you can also, summarize it to us, as a person that was there when everything happened, from the onset, you and your partner, I assume, what were the relationship dynamics like, and what ultimately, led to you being accused of a very serious gender-based violence case?
Yeah, so the thing is, I can't even actually say exactly what had occurred between me and my wife that she could actually go to such a length. Everything happened so fast. Just the whole shock of being charged and being sort of getting arrested and stuff like that, going to court and stuff like that was a real shocker to me. And through the whole process and stuff like that, being, how do I say, not knowledgeable about law and stuff like that or whatever, I took very light thing towards it. I figured that, maybe legal aid would actually help me through the whole process and stuff like that. Um, I think one of the bad things that did happen through the start of the whole thing was my legal aid lawyer was changed. I think one or two appearances before the actual trial date, which I actually did not even know the date of the trial. And I think the most scariest part is going into court and not having any sort of knowledge about how the court system runs, how the law system runs, and to think that how an individual can just say whatever they need to say in order for a person to get locked up. And this is exactly what I was a victim of. And again, as I said, it happened so fast. I can't even say, how do I say, that there was any reason for this to happen. There was mediation that should have been held before me being convicted with a sentence, but according to this person, well, she actually just wanted to get me locked up.
Mm, mm. Let me bring in Keelan there. Keelan, is there, any kind of retribution, for people like, Khalid's wife, who go on and, gender-based violence is a very, very, very serious matter in South Africa. A lot of women are rightly, affected by it. And then when someone goes and, like, unlawfully or unjustly accuses someone of it, what recourse or punishment is there for them, and is it known and understood by people that you can actually sue someone who wrongfully accuses you of something as serious as gender-based violence?
Look, in theory, there's a lot of things that you can do legally. You can sue for damages. But remember, in this specific matter, there's a complainant, which is Mr. Aziz's wife. She laid a complaint with the SAPS. They then took it to a prosecutor who screened the docket and believed there was prima facie, meaning on the face of it, credible evidence to take this matter onto trial. There was a magistrate who presided over the matter that came with a decision. And unfortunately, in this kind of circumstances, Mr. Aziz kind of felt in the middle of when there was a move towards the disease that plagues our community, gender-based violence. And he is unfortunately one of the very few people who has been made an example of. And rightfully or wrongfully, the situation under GBV is actually, people are misunderstanding what's GBV. Now we understand that GBV plagues our communities. We understand there should be better protection for the vulnerable people in our communities. However, law is law. And when you go to court, whether it's a GBV matter or an assault matter, any type of matter that involves two parties, the merits have to be adjudicated objectively, fairly, and the evidence has to be essentially dealt with as a normal matter. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that critical core aspect of it is that there's a distinction between GBV and a distinction between assault. And there is no distinction. When you go before a criminal court, as much as it's GBV, the evidence has to talk for itself. Unfortunately, the evidence against Mr. Aziz was so poor in nature, the legal aid representative was so poor in nature that ultimately accumulated in him getting convicted. And I'm gonna just maybe take a shot at this and say that he was made an example of, unfortunately. And if you're asking about recourse, unfortunately, there's very limited recourse. Your recourse would be against the state, alternatively for malicious prosecution, or alternatively against legal aid for inadequate legal representation.
And Khalid, there, I'm sure spending so many days incarcerated, really, really had a knock on you. How was it, staying in in prison for such a long time and knowing that you're innocent? What kind of toll did it take on you, mentally and just psychologically in general, knowing that you are wrongfully accused of something that you didn't do?
That was actually tough. Um, yeah, it was very tough. The thing is, you're going to an environment where, let's face it, you have to fight for your life every day. I can't explain to you how compared to the normal living that we do every day and how different it is there inside. It's really really quite scary. I remember the first day entering prison, and to be honest with you, I think that was like a whole life sentence on its own. It's a place that will actually give you so much of life experience. Um, uh, you know, Again, the conditions are a bit more extreme compared to where you are at home. Much more scarier. You are in the confinements of people who are, of course, serial killers, rapists, and stuff like that, or whatever. And actually, really, really not a nice feeling. Not a nice feeling at all. Um, Although I must say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has really helped me through the whole process. I was protected all of the time, especially by the Muslim group that was there in prison. Of course, of course, it's life changing. It's definitely life changing. And I think to be innocent and to be wrongfully convicted, I think was actually one of the worst experiences I've ever experienced in my life. Like, I mean, the thing is, you going through that process of you being wrongfully convicted, and then you still have to have a mindset where you need to be protected all of the time, or you need to watch over your back because of the environment that you are in. I definitely can say that most of all that you need in a prison and stuff like that would be a strong mental thing to go about every day. But yeah, again, not a nice experience. And Alhamdulillah, through my law firm, which is Kylen, Muhammad Razak, and Muhammad Veli, who have taken me out of the situation. Alhamdulillah.
Mm, mm. Kylen, legal representation can get, really expensive. That's why, a lot of people, settle for a legal aid. If you're faced, with a situation like that where you have legal aid representing you, is there a way to make sure that, the lawyer that's dealing with your case or an advocate that's dealing with your case, is number one, properly qualified, and number two, they're taking, your case seriously, and number three, if you feel like they're not doing all of those things or they're not, adequately equipped to deal with your case, who can you take it up with, to make sure that you don't end up where, unfortunately, Mr. Aziz there, found himself?
Look, this matter is very distinctive. I think that the individual from legal aid that was doing the matter was a candidate attorney. He was unsupervised and inadequately had the expertise or experience to deal with a matter of this nature. If anybody wants to read the transcripts or the judgment, it's abundantly clear that the gentleman was still in the learning process without supervision. And, you know, legal aid is the most inundated law firm in South Africa. I'm in court nearly every day. I see the type of work that they do. There are great legal aid practitioners out there, but unfortunately, without the correct supervision, unfortunately, these matters come. This matter has been groundbreaking for legal aid. Legal aid now have armed themselves with knowing that the prejudice they cause to innocent people like Mr. Aziz. Mr. Aziz, in any average or capable attorney, would have possibly won the matter for Mr. Aziz. That's how glaringly bad the evidence was against him. Look, so if any viewers have an issue with legal aid have officers, you can report it. They're very good people. They are good supervisors. They deal with, you find that one legal aid practitioner deals with 40, 50 matters a day. Now that's trial matters, that's guilty pleas, that's a whole host of matters, including consulting with people. So I understand that they take strain, but I think that if you're an organization that provides legal services to the public who cannot afford it, there's a standard. And that standard has to be adhered to, because under our constitution, everybody has a right to legal representation. If people feel aggrieved by their legal aid practitioner, they should immediately report it to their supervisors. Their supervisors have a duty to intervene, oversee, and review their file and give them proper guidance in terms of what should or ought to have happened. That would be my view on it. They're independent organization. They do very good work. Unfortunately, Mr. Aziz got the bad end of the stick. These matters are prevalent in society. There is people that are currently in custody because of poor legal representation, purely because they're inundated. So we'd ask that if government put in measures in terms of taking aggressive stances in certain aspects, like GBV matters, where they don't mediate these matters likely anymore, they take a very strong stance towards the matter, then they should be equipped, the state should be equipped to provide proper legal representation, training, supervision, and oversee these type of matters with a fine-tooth comb, so these stories do not happen again. It cannot happen again. We in 2024, these things should never happen in our society, to be honest with you.
And Khaalid, just lastly from you, has there been any communication with your wife? When was the last time you saw her? Was this discussed or corrected within the family? What's the latest between you two?
I actually haven't heard anything about her, of whereabouts or anything. I actually haven't made contact. I actually did. She tried to make contact where I believe her mother had passed away. So just to try and send her, my condolences and stuff like that. But concerning any sort of these matters, no, it was not discussed or was being spoken to. I actually don't even know where she is or what she's doing at
Mm,
all.
mm. And Kylen, what's next right now? Mr. Aziz's wife. What's going to happen to her, because it has been found out that she wrongfully accused Mr. Aziz of GBV. Is there only any recourse from her, or the case is closed moving forward? Nothing else is going to happen. Everyone just goes their separate ways.
Look, the unfortunate part is, and Mr. Aziz is a very strong individual. Let me tell you something. He's a very positive guy. He's a very a rational person. He understands certain things in life. Look, unfortunately, against Mr. Aziz's wife, there'll be very limited recourse in this situation because there were role players that made a decision to proceed in the manner that they did. We are discussing taking on the role players who have put Mr. Aziz in the position that he is. We'll keep that confidential for now.
Mm,
But in terms of the realities of life and not of what we're going to do, Mr. Aziz has a child that he probably hasn't met. And within our communities, people are inundating domestic violence courts, your criminal courts, your GBV courts, your children's court with lies. And it becomes no more between two parties. It becomes a family and a family. And the only people that actually suffer in this matter are people like Mr. Aziz that go to prison. And unfortunately, the minor children that have two parents that are not communicating. And if we want a better community and a better society for ourselves, unfortunately, communication is key. I think Mr. Aziz would agree with that, that over time, there's so many GBV related matters where there's parents that are divided. In the next 15 or 20 years, we're going to have a serious problem with children that are going to be growing up without guidance, supervision, and there's going to be a massive problem just because there's this major issue with division within our communities between families, not only mother and father, but also families. And that's a sad reality,
mm,
unfortunately.
mm. And just a parting question to the both of you, starting with you, Kylen. Any advice, to others that are, in the same situation as Mr. Aziz is? What can they do? They know that they are being wrongfully accused. They don't have the proper legal representation. What can they do?
Look, I think it's important that they take advice, not only from a single person. I think they should get advice from numerous sources and ultimately make a decision on themselves. Um, it's very important to speak to people who've been through the process, that understand the process. There are other support groups. There are there's a lot of GBV groups that you can contact. People that have experience in the space that can guide people appropriately. Remember, something like Mr. Aziz has advised, he thought it was a very small matter. Unfortunately, it cost him 408 days in prison. Um, it became a very simple matter that became very complicated. So I say to the viewers that look, legal advice, you get some bad apples, you get some good apples, but speak to people who have been through the process. Mr. Aziz is living proof that he's been through the process. Mr. Aziz possibly can be an attorney in the future because he's been through the criminal process from every application to the process to everything that entails criminal proceedings up until the High Court. So I'll tell the viewers that look, also on the flip side, I would like to tell the viewers that going to courts, number one, is not a thing that should be done with at the spur of the moment. We've lost touch with speaking to elders in our community, speaking to religious leaders in our communities, especially the elders. It's a disappointing thing that we've had such strong elders in the past. But now when there's a dispute of this nature where there's minor kids involved, families take sides, and elder people don't have the rationale to step in and guide people. You find that 90% of matters in domestic violence court or in our children's court can be resolved by pure communication, by guidance by our elders in the community, our religious leaders. And we need more of that. We need more people to stand up and say, listen, there's an issue between a husband and a wife. It doesn't have to resort to a full-blown criminal trial or a domestic violence trial. Wherever we can curb it, let's give support, let's help people in our communities. I think that's where it starts. Not at courts, it starts with the people in our communities that stand up and help. I think that's important.
And you, Khalid, any advice, to other people, whether men or women who are faced with the same situation, probably staring a year or more in prison like you did, and knowing fully, that they are being wrongfully accused? What kind of advice would you give them?
I think try and sort out your matters at home first, as Kylen was saying, between the elders and stuff like that. I think as Muslims, we do have this privilege where we can, go towards our elders and handle stuff like that. The thing is, we as Muslims run into a system which does not involve any sort of Sharia way of handling all of these matters is a very, 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 very bad thing. The thing is, as Muslims, we have been given so much of resources from our Nabi Pak Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and of course our Sharia law of how to handle these kind of matters. And second of all, if let's per se, as my case has happened, and if things have gone as far as these, um, you know, in my case, I felt that what, there's no evidence, there's no witnesses towards it, and I took it very lightly. And as this is hence why I proceeded with legal aid. The thing is, with people who are involved in this kind of thing, please do sort of research, get hold of people who are like Kylen and stuff like that. Please get to know how the law system works, what are your rights, what you can do, how you can do it, and when you're standing in the court of law and stuff like that. And mainly, of course, just don't go to jail. That's mainly don't go.
Mm. And also, are you taking steps, to move on from that traumatic experience? Are you seeking any kind of psychological help? How are you moving on?
For now, I've just been sticking towards my guitar and doing what I can to do with myself. I'm actually still in a space where I'm actually not still, how do I say? I haven't still fully adapted to the normal society. I do tend to um, go out and do things or whatever, but a lot of the time I still want to stick in between my two, I mean, between my four walls kind of a thing. So it has been, even for me to be on this media channel and to be speaking is really, really quite huge, because the effects of being so long in prison and having to have a certain mindset, um, when you come out, it's hard to adapt, because as Kylen can say also, everything happens so fast. It happens so fast is where you in normal society, and all of a sudden, both you have to change your mindset towards being a certain, being a certain protective kind of a manner or whatever. The plan is to do some sort of psychology, yeah. But as I said, for now, I'm just trying to fit back into society, and as soon as that happens, I will actually do some sort of psychology towards it, which is much needed. Yeah.
All right. No, thank you so much, gentlemen. I think we're going to leave it there. Really, really eye-opening discussion that we had there. The law essentially being abused, and at least justice at the end of the day prevailed. Kylen and Khalid, thank you so much for joining us here on Salam Media. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you very
thanks a
much.
lot.
Well, there you have it. Very, very, very difficult situation there. Imagine that. Being wrongfully, accused of gender-based violence. A very, very a serious case that is currently, grappling South Africa. A lot of people dealing with gender-based violence. A lot of households and homes, being destroyed by gender-based violence. And the resources that should be used to be taking care of those people, and that should be used to find some sort of justice to the real victims of gender-based violence, being essentially wasted on someone who's being wrongfully accused. Yeah, I think there's something to look into to make sure that the law is not abused by those that have personal vendettas. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be speaking sports. 2024 South Africa versus New Zealand International Blind Cricket series that's currently happening. I will be chatting to National Coordinator of Blind Cricket South Africa, Dumiso Nyawuse, who will be telling us on what to expect and what we could look forward to when it comes to blind cricket. Yes, there is such a sport, blind cricket. We'll learn about it after the break. Yeah, so keep it tuned.